All right, and welcome to the Antique Auction Forum podcast. I'm really glad we have our guest. I visited him years ago in San Jose at the eBay campus, and it's their Dean of Education, Griff. Now, people may know him from eBay as Uncle Griff, I think. James Griffith. He is the eBay seller coach, instructor, mentor, advocate with eBay North America Marketplace team. In addition, he's an author of the official eBay Bible. We'll talk about that a little bit. And that's the authoritative eBay guide for the beginning bidder, seller, professional, entrepreneur, as well as the host of, he has a eBay radio, which you can tune into. All right, welcome to the show. Good to have you back.
Mark. Good to be back.
It's been a long time. And
years.
Yeah, I know.
They've flown by.
They really have. And a lot has changed in the world, actually. I mean, look at what has changed since we last talked. I mean, cell phones now, people can bid on their cell phones, smartphones. Let's see, social media, I wanted to talk about that because I just noticed, 10 million likes on the Facebook page on eBay, first of all. I don't know if you even know that, but it's crazy.
Yeah, that's the eBay main page, yeah.
Yeah. And so I also wanted to talk how has eBay evolved? Not necessarily from the beginning, because we kind of went over that. I know the show is really old. It started out sort of as an auction site. Started out in a garage too, right?
In a condo.
In a condo.
Yeah, in Pierre's condo here in Campbell, which is a part of San Jose Incorporated, back in 1996. 95.
95, wow. And I guess I'm an early eBay user because I started in 1998, which is kind of early, right?
That is early, yes.
Yeah, back when it was absolutely horrible to list something. You had to upload your pictures elsewhere, and it was just really, really difficult. It took me maybe a half hour to list something on eBay, and I just listed something in like 5 or less minutes the other day. I mean, it's so user-friendly back then. Has that been a goal right from the beginning to make the site user-friendly?
Yeah, and for both buying and selling, they're separate initiatives, but they are tied together. And the challenge for eBay is it started out as a marketplace where anyone could sell anything to anybody. And that was extremely appealing. It was a kind of soft middleman platform that broke the traditional barriers of location, so that it didn't matter where you were. You could offer things to basically the world if you had an internet connection. The challenge for us since then is adapting to buyer expectations as the internet has matured and online shopping has become more of it's just a given. Everyone does it. Back then, it were the pioneers were the people who bought and sold, and they would put up with a lot of built-in inefficiencies, like, for example, having to take 30 minutes or more just to list one item. Mm-hmm. As those expectations have changed and the internet and technology itself has changed, we've been able to pare that down to a much easier experience on the seller end.
Right. Now, I noticed today, like, for instance, I'm buying a couple things for my boat, and I'll just go into Google and I'll type, like, I need a transom light, a transom light. I type into Google, and what comes up, it's either Amazon or eBay. And I know I'm going to buy from one of those. And it's turned into a marketplace, a lot of a marketplace that's kind of competing head to head with Amazon. Am I right about that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, of course, all online marketplaces and retailers compete against each other now. I mean, in the past, you'd have to walk into a physical location, check out the prices, jot them down, get back in your car, drive to another location. Not very efficient. But now with something like Google Shopping, most everything online, if it qualifies for Google's shopping feed, will be presented in one page. So you'll see separate retailers, separate websites, you'll see different marketplaces, and you'll see For example, Amazon and eBay being those marketplaces. And it's a great tool for buyers because that way buyers can find the best price regardless of a marketplace. And to be honest with you, as much as I want people to shop on eBay, I most want people to buy the best deal they can find. So yeah, it's been a great a tool for buyers to get the best value. And it's not just, when I say value, it's not just, for example, the price, but how fast am I going to get the item? What guarantees are there? These are all the factors that a buyer uses for determining a final value that is going to compel them to either purchase or not from a particular vendor or marketplace. As an example, if I don't need an item right away, I'm willing to pay less for it if it's going to take a month to get here. But if I need an item really fast, like I need to replace maybe my webcam, and I need it for like in 3 days, I'll pay a premium to get it that fast. I'll balance that out. If I can actually get in my car and drive to a store and get a better deal, I might do that. So the the merchant who's selling on any marketplace has to keep all of those considerations in play when they price and present their items, regardless of where it is.
Right. Now, was the hardest part, I know you were the very first customer service representative of eBay back in 96. When did you start?
No, yeah, November of 96. I was a younger man. What happened?
But wouldn't you say that trust was the hardest thing to build the site? Trust on like both sides, right?
Yeah, it's been an ongoing challenge because as a marketplace that doesn't hold inventory like other marketplaces, which shall be nameless, Amazon, we have to take it on trust that the seller is shipping the item and the buyer is actually paying for it, and not, that everything is above board. Now, Pierre's original concept that people are basically good still holds true today. But regardless of the fact that the majority of people are basically good, all it takes is, one experience with a bad seller, and you may be soured on that marketplace. So yeah, trust is starting from the very beginning, but then it really became a sort of a top line topic for eBay back in 2007. A lot has happened since then. But what we now offer buyers who shop on the site is an eBay money-back guarantee. So if something goes wrong with the sale, you don't get the item, the seller won't address your issues, we'll cover it.
Oh, I didn't realize it was actually eBay covering it.
Yeah.
It's actually...
Well, depending on the circumstances, we cover it, and we may recoup from the seller or the merchant, depending on the circumstances. So there are instances where it's a no-fault. The seller shipped the item, for example. Scan shows it was shipped, but it was never delivered. We can't hold the seller responsible for that, but we'll or if it was damaged in transit, we will in those cases issue a full money back to the buyer, and it's either out of eBay's pocket or we may recoup from the seller depending on the circumstances.
All right, I'm going to.
That really went a long way to dispelling the notion that eBay was an unsafe place to purchase, because it actually is, and allowed us the space after we solved that major issue to then move on to issues like finding items as fast as possible. There's about 1 billion plus items on eBay right now.
That was one of my questions. Holy mackerel! Wow. Now, last time you and I talked, I think it was in the hundreds of millions.
Maybe around 500 million, maybe 500 million, but there's just a little bit more than 1 billion items on the site at any given time, and that's constantly growing.
That's amazing. And what about other countries? Are you actually growing into other countries still today?
Yeah, the growth rates in various countries vary, but the growth is still there. We were pretty well established over time in markets in Europe and the UK. Asia still offers great opportunity, and as well as South America and even eventually Africa. So there's still areas for expansion of any marketplace who has a global platform into areas of the world where maybe right now there's not a lot of online shopping. India is a huge player in the market now with their burgeoning middle class, and even Russia. Russia has a burgeoning middle class. They like to shop on eBay. So
Now, is there? I've been to Russia a number of times lately in the last few years, and I noticed some geo blocking on certain sites, like Netflix, for instance. Is there? I mean, certain shows on Netflix. It's really bizarre. Um, does eBay have to deal with any geo blocking from one country to another?
Not really. So what we'll do is we'll set policies. The only reason that a country might want to block eBay or specific eBay listings is because the actual content or the item for sale might not be legal in that country. But we pretty much uh, take care of that with our policies cover all types. They're for the entire site. So, for example, except for some minor things which we take care of with shipping, uh, there's very little that you can list legally on eBay within policy that can't be sold around the world. But there are some things you can't. So, for example, ivory, you can't list it on eBay.
Right.
Endangered species, there are some, and I can't think off the top of my head right at the moment, there's some specific types of products where we found it just as easy to just say, look, those are prohibited because it becomes a nightmare if you're trying to ship them globally. There is one interesting one which only impacts our global shipping program. If you're shipping to Italy on your own, you can ship a pair of shoes there and take a chance that customs will let them through. But the custom laws in Italy, from what I believe, is that you can't ship shoes into Italy, leather shoes.
Really? How about
Yeah,
that?
well, if you've ever spent time in Italy, they're
Yeah.
real particular about their shoes.
Yeah, they're good
So
shoes too.
they
Um,
are.
what would you say is the strangest thing someone tried to list on eBay?
So,
That I mean, I went to an auction where there's a shrunken head one time. I mean, has
yeah, that
anybody?
wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah,
It's a
but I mean,
body part, so you can't sell body parts. That
that's
was
good
the,
to know.
and
um,
I'm pretty sure a shrunken head is a body part. So,
or it used to be. Yeah.
well,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. But I mean, do people attempt to sell like banned items and they get kicked out?
Well, no. So what happens today? Back in the heyday of the auction site when it was primarily auctions, people used it as a platform for grabbing attention by selling things like their soul or their ghost or their kidney. But that's fallen by the wayside as eBay has matured. Our seller base has matured as well. So you don't see much of that, if any, anymore, and it's probably just for the better.
Yeah.
But sometimes somebody might list something. We have filters in place that if you try to list something that's prohibited on the site, the filters in 99% of the time will catch it and either block it or give you a warning. I think the biggest issue now is not so much those attention-grabbing, unusual things. We still have issues with copyright. So, the way that the law is written in the United States, that's the Digital Millennial Copyright Act from 1996 or 8, I can't remember now. If a rights holder sees something on a site like eBay, Amazon, anywhere, that they believe infringes upon their property rights, they can issue a takedown demand of that site, and the site has no recourse but to take the item down, delete it entirely from the site, and that's what eBay does. Any site will do that, and a lot of our sellers are sometimes new sellers are not familiar with this process, and they get very upset with eBay and say eBay is trying to ruin my business, and this was definitely not fake, and we say, look, I have a whole explanation that I send to sellers who email me about this and say, hey, look, it's not us. We're bound by the federal law, and or else we'll be in trouble. And if a rights owner tells us that we have to take something down, we don't get to negotiate. We don't get to act on behalf of the seller. We can't say, well, prove it. The law says immediate takedown. And that's what we do. And it really gets some people angry. But unfortunately, that's the law. If you don't like the law, talk to your congressman or woman. Tell them you want a chance.
Um, now, when something is on eBay and it slips through the filters, is there a way to flag something like that? Like, to say if I went on eBay and I saw a body part that was listed wrong or something.
Yeah, every listing has a little link that says report this item.
I see. Yeah, I should have known that.
And body parts would get reported really quick.
I'm sure
There'd
you
be
would.
multiple reports.
Yeah, yeah. Now I gotta tell you of a situation that happened a number of years ago in the beginning of eBay. Myself, it wasn't my idea, but another art dealer, an antique dealer, told me. He said, "Hey, look, I got some advice for you." He said, "Go if there's an artist you like or collect or looking for, go in and search on eBay and misspell his name, right?"
Hmm.
So this was before the spell check was up and all that on eBay, long before that. So I actually found a painting doing that. It was but there was one artist that I really liked, and it ended up being a really valuable painting. So I ended up buying it at a really good price, and then someone contacted the seller, and she canceled the sale. And I was really upset about that. I caused a little bit of trouble, but nothing really happened. Do things like that still happen today? I mean, do you hear
I'm,
about
I
things
would
like that?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I haven't heard of anything like that happening in years.
Hmm.
Most sellers, I think, are more careful now about the way they spell something, especially an artist name.
Yeah.
There are still instances. I can give you an example right off because I spend a lot of time buying clothing on the site. I also sell clothing. But if you go search for Van Heusen and you spell Heusen with a Hue and Heu, be surprised how many show up with the wrong spelling. Hue is wrong,
Yeah.
and but people still use it. Now, in certain cases where there are known misspellings, we have the power now to tie it back and say, did you mean this, and then show the items with the correct spelling. So
Wow. Yeah.
as we move away from keyword search being, the single most important component on eBay for finding items, this becomes less and less of a problem. Now, for things that are one of a kind, like art or antiques or collectibles, keywords are always going to matter. But anything that's identifiable with a product identifier, which would be a barcode, a UPC number, an ISBN number, we're in the process. This has been going on for a couple of years now, building out the eBay catalog or database. And those are more important points than the actual title keywords.
Wow. Speaking of that, I know this is a little far fetched, but how about image recognition? Has that ever been discussed at eBay? Like if someone
It's already
doesn't,
in play, Martin. Are you not paying attention?
is
We
it
already
really?
have it.
You
Yeah.
have it on eBay?
Yeah, so about a half a year ago, we announced this initiative where we now have image search, and I think it's available only on mobile phones. But if you go on the mobile app and you run a search, and depending on which type of app you're running on which phone, there's a little thing that you can use. You can take a picture of an item, and then eBay will search for similar
Wow.
images and bring up those listings. For some things, in its first day, it's a self-learning algorithm, like a lot of AI today. You'd get some not so great results, but over time, it's actually been improving. I was in a store about a month ago, and I saw a pair of shoes that I liked, and I took a picture of them. I made sure it wasn't too busy, and eBay brought up all the examples of those shoes. So
It's
yeah,
crazy.
image recognition is a big component in search right now at eBay, and it'll be more so as time goes on.
Wow, that's amazing. And it makes me, one of the questions I was going to ask late in this interview, but since we're on it, will AI be more of eBay and what could the evolution of eBay possibly be?
Well, it's always speculation about what the future holds, and I wouldn't want to make any forward-looking statements because our investor relations team would take me to task for that. But yeah, AI is a big component for search
Hmm.
primarily. There are two components. The component for search, so that buyers can find what they're looking for, not only fast and easy, but based on the way they like to search, involves artificial intelligence and machine learning. And eBay is not the only one, although we take pride in the challenge that we face because not all of our merchandise can be arrayed in a database like a catalog. Amazon, for example, 99.9% of all their merchandise is catalogable to begin with. So it's much easier to find, in some cases, what you're looking for historically there. We need to meet that challenge and then at the same time, make sure that we're not leaving behind what the merchandise that makes eBay special, which is that one of a kind merchandise that big sites find it really hard to have to serve up, so they kind of not go after it. So you can take a picture of a painting, and eBay can show you examples that are similar to that, and that might be an effective way besides just keyword search of finding the item itself, and that'll improve over time. On the seller end, our sellers, understandably so, whether you're experienced or brand new, need some guidance when they list an item. For example, price. And price guidance based on AI is a thing at eBay that we're developing right now, and it actually is in play, especially for catalogable items, but also for unique items, so that sellers, when they're listing an item, get a better idea of what they should expect currently for a market price, and they can then price their items accordingly. Because there's nothing more discouraging than putting an item at too high a price, or maybe putting it at too low a price and then finding out afterwards you could have got a lot more money for it. So
I remember years ago a friend of mine listed something like 400 Royal Dalton mugs, one at a time. And the thing back then, this is, I would say, probably back in 99 or 2000, something like that. The deal was then he listed them all starting at like 29 cents a piece and let all the tons of bids come in. And they did. They came in and they all sold for what happens. Now, I've tried that lately, like a really low starting bid on eBay on something, and it bombed.
it can, yeah.
And so it's more of a risk, I think, now.
Today it is definitely more of a risk because the marketplace for antiques has changed a lot. I'm sure you know this. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but the best of the best is still bringing good prices, but a lot of stuff is not selling for what it used to. We find that collectors, for example, who've been collecting all their lives and are now entering their twilight years, slouching slowly towards enfeeblement, and they want to be able to give the stuff to their kids. Kids don't want the stuff anymore.
That's right.
So the marketplace gets flooded with medium grade antiques and collectibles, and this is depressed prices. So where I remember back in the 70s, in the heyday of the antiques business, when I started out as a young man, a country 4-drawer chest of drawers in painted pine, maybe just varnished, could bring a premium at auction, thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah. You're lucky if it brings $500 today.
That's right. Yeah.
So in many ways, it may be bad for some sellers, but if you're looking to collect, it's probably a buyer's market right now, because every market eventually over time comes back or goes up. But this is one of the results of that happens when you make a marketplace more efficient, is it cuts out a lot of middlemen, and then that ends up bringing prices down. And that we saw this immediately with the internet and eBay back in the late 90s. A lot of things that for decades had been considered very valuable, suddenly we realized there was a lot more of these available at any one given time.
We'll talk about Roseville.
Roseville being a great example.
And Hummels.
Yeah.
But I never liked Hummels myself, but I hope I don't offend anyone out there. But
let me speak for you. I hate Hummels, and I have a reputation of smashing them. I have a pink hammer, and I've done this at events where I take out a Hummel and I smash it, and the audience, especially the older women in the audience, they faint. And I said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to smash yours, but now yours are more valuable."
Oh my God!
I've just restricted the market.
That is really funny. And here's the other thing that eBay has changed a little bit, and I find this from when I speak to people that I've collected for a long time. They have a story with every item. We got in our car, we drove 50 miles, we looked and we found this on a little estate sale on the side of the road, and they have their stories. And any online buying of any antique, so to speak, it kind of loses that. That's gone with a click now.
Yeah. And I don't know if I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Well, yeah. Well, you're sitting on that side.
Well, and the reason I say this is our research shows that buyers, unless your story is really compelling and easy to digest, buyers aren't reading it. So sellers will tell you this. They'll say, buyers don't read, and then they'll put 3,000 paragraphs in their listing. Yeah, they're not going to read it. So if you can make it in a few sentences, if you can sum it up, and I know from my book writing days that it's always possible to take a paragraph and reduce it to a sentence if you're really creative, and you still get the same point across in what matters to the buyer. If it's provenance and they want some example of provenance, being able to show that in a way that's easily read and scanned and remembered, that's a good thing. But a paragraph long story, in the early days of eBay, people really found those entertaining. That day is over, really, and you really got to be brief, concise, and comprehensive about your descriptions, or your buyer may may probably not read it, but also may end up skipping over information that really is important
Yeah.
because they think, oh, I'm not going to read all this.
Yeah. Well, the rarity, condition, those are the
Yeah,
things,
very important.
that really matter the most. What would you say that was eBay's best choice in change in policy? And that could be from anything from introducing a new type of thing. eBay Motors, for instance. That must have been really big. Was
Yeah,
that?
that was a big thing. In fact, even Pierre thought, well, this won't work. Who's going
Uh-huh.
to buy cars on the internet? Of
I,
course, he was
I,
smart.
I remember how, I think you told me this, that someone tried to list a toy Mustang and then someone, or a real Mustang, and they couldn't understand how to list it as toy or not a toy. And that's how that created, or did someone else tell me that
I
story?
don't remember. I think you may have heard that somewhere else. I don't
Yeah.
remember that particular story. I remember that someone did list a car on eBay, and Pierre looked at the listing and said, well, how this isn't going to work, but it did.
Yeah.
If I had to think about the single most important thing, and there's so many, I would have to say and it was probably inevitable, but I would say the introduction of a fixed price format. Uh, there's a lot of always there at the time, and even today there still is controversy about, well, I only use auctions, or I'll never use fixed price. And that's always amazed me that people aren't willing to consider another format, because even in the antiques business, if you're a smart dealer, you go to a show, you don't auction the item off. You put a price on it, and you may negotiate it down. So the fixed price with the best offer option, I think, was one of the smarter things we've ever done. In particular, and specifically for those items where historically that's how they would sell. As you know, the problem with or the risk with using an auction format is if it's not highly desirable, your chance of getting that price bid up in a bidding war is less likely. And sometimes we may overvalue our own antiques or collectibles because they mean a lot to us,
Mhm.
and that can be a big disappointment. So understanding value and then using the right format is critical to success on eBay. I'm always surprised that people sell used clothing and they put it up for auction. Unless this is a rare piece of clothing, who wants to? Number one, who's going to pay a lot? And we also know from buyer research that, for example, in the early days of eBay, lots of antique buyers and sellers used the site, and they were comfortable with that format. The vast majority of buyers in the world are not comfortable buying at auction. They want to find something, they want to see the price, and they want to purchase it. They don't want to put a bid and then wait to see if they get outbid and think, oh, do I have to bid more? It becomes more of anxiety than just purchasing something. So using that format is important, but I think probably the introduction of the buy it now format was a big one. Would I rate it as the most important? That's hard because there's so
Yeah.
many things that were done on eBay, but that's a big one.
Wow. I understand for the person who has like a rare collectible and they say, well, I don't know where to price this at. And boy, what happens if I underprice it? Or what happens, like you said earlier, what happens if I overprice it? No one will bid. There is that sweet spot that they're trying to find.
Right.
And auction is really good for that. I mean, like you said, the rare items get bid on.
Yeah.
Is that like the concern mostly is that people just don't know where to price something? Is that why they still go to auction, the
I
auction
think
method?
so. I think in the lack of price guidance for some of our categories, people say, well, I'll just put it up for auction, and fingers crossed it'll bring a lot of money. And that for some sellers on eBay, it really works. There are some sellers who understand value, or not so much they understand value, but they understand intuitively that what they're looking at when they're putting something up, this will do okay at auction if I started at $10. My experience shows that I stand a good chance of making profit on this. But if you're just what we call a consumer seller, you're not really in the business, you don't really have a lot of experience selling on or off eBay or with a particular category like antiques, then it's up to us to be able to provide better guidance, especially to those new sellers, so that they continue listing the merchandise on eBay that they bring, which is a really important component of eBay. Those occasional or small sellers bring the type of merchandise that isn't available anywhere else. You can't list it on Amazon. So it's a big component of eBay's DNA, and we want to make sure we maintain it. So it's a challenge for us, but I'm sure we can meet it.
It's getting back to this buy it now or auction, a lot of times I will stumble across something on eBay when I'm looking for something. And then I'll see it's an auction and I'll say, I don't want to wait for that. I'll go elsewhere and I'll bid something like to shipping. Is that kind of like the most mindset today? Is someone like they'll see a really good deal, but it's at auction, and for a few dollars more, I can just buy it now and be done with it.
Yeah, so that's important. If you can buy it now from someone else, then it's not that rare. And
Yeah.
now we have a balance to think of as a seller. I don't want my competitor to make this sale, so I want to keep on top of the price so that I can be just under the price, either with the price or the shipping, so that a buyer who stumbles upon two in a search will pick mine as opposed to the other person's. If the item's truly rare, and that happens, there's still a lot of rare items on eBay. And when I say rare, I don't mean they're unique or one of a kind. Those are there too. But if they don't show up that often, I can give you a great example. I collect fragrance, among other things, especially old ones.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some fragrances that they just don't show up that often. And you'd be a fool not to put it up at auction, because the collectors are going to come out in droves and they're going to bid it up and it's going to sell for a lot of money. I think of one in particular that I actually don't own. I'd like to have an example of it. It's by a company called Jacques Fath, and the perfume is called Iris Griff, and it's from the 40s, and it sells for thousands of dollars.
Oh my God!
If you're at a tag sale and you find Iris Griff, and it's by Jacques Fath, even if there's just a little bit in the bottle, buy it and put it on eBay.
That's crazy, huh?
Some sucker like me will pay a lot of money for it. So
wow, I never thought of. I've said this on the show before. People, if it's out there, people will collect it, no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's buttons or fragrances. That's a new one for me. Yeah. And what about alcohol? I think of rare alcohol. You can't put that on eBay, right? I mean,
yes, you can, as long as what you're selling is and the value is in the collectible bottle. So you can sell. This has been in place for a long time. You can sell bottles of alcohol if it's the bottle that's collectible and it just happens to have alcohol in it. You can sell wine, but I think you have to provide us with a resale license. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, you couldn't take a 6-pack of Budweiser and put it up on eBay.
Has that proven to be a slippery slope in any type of way, the bottle thing?
Not really. No, you would think it might be, but no, it really hasn't. I think this started back when people were putting up cans of Billy beer.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Carter, when Jimmy Carter's brother actually licensed his name to beer, and those are collectible.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had a 6-pack for a while. I don't even remember what I did with it. Yeah.
You probably drank it, I hope.
I don't know.
So, but yeah, we don't see much of an issue with that. No, not at all.
Yeah. Now I know firearms could never be on there. What about things that simulate firearms?
Well, there are very specific rules, and they do change over time. So, for the most part, firearms are not allowed. Even some replica or toy guns that look real, they have to be sold and pictured with the orange plug in the barrel. But yeah, that's and every year it gets more controversial.
Yeah.
That has been disallowed on eBay or prohibited since 1998.
What about black powder and all what they call the black powder guns? They're
like muskets and stuff.
Like wall hanger muskets, things that can't be used, type of thing.
I'm not absolutely sure. I'd have to look at the policy again.
Yeah. So we were talking about the changes, and one of them I wanted to bring up is I don't think Facebook was the last time we talked. It was either just barely going or not. How has social media changed eBay?
So it's interesting because initially it wasn't so much a change as an enhancement. A lot of people started using Facebook and their format to create groups around specific marketplaces or collecting interests, and that was very helpful because one of the important aspects of eBay in the beginning was the idea of sellers sharing with each other best practices, tips, experiences. It not only helps increase a seller's knowledge about how to navigate and succeed in a marketplace, but selling online is pretty much a solitary affair. And this provided an outlet, just like eBay community pages did and still do, where sellers can actually communicate with each other and share stories and be social. I mean, it's perfect word for it. I think our challenge is now that the marketplaces like Facebook are starting to eat, and they have their own marketplace. And sellers are finding eBay as a platform where they can make like local sales. It's interesting. I'm seeing groups pop up where sellers are selling things. They're facing the same difficulties eBay faced in '96. So they're going to have to relearn or go through the same process we did when we started, which is if you're acting as a middleman, it doesn't matter where it is online, keeping buyers and sellers happy and keeping things legit is a challenge, and good luck.
Wow.
But it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch that kind of evolution.
Now, has any?
I think the other thing that social media has done is eat into eBay a little bit with the idea of localized classified. So, Facebook, on my Facebook page, I have a San Jose feed for their marketplace where I can see things that you would usually find on Craigslist or even on eBay as local pickup. And now people are utilizing the platform. There is inherent risk there. I mean, people showing up at your house, what kind of payment do you do? So we're not really feeling threatened by it, but it is fascinating to watch this evolve. And I think it's beyond just corporate interest. It's a human interest. People, and I think this is probably the basis for any marketplace-based society, is that human beings like to trade. They have enjoyed trading since the dawn of time, and that has never changed. And that never will change. One person cannot be self-sufficient in the world, as much as some like to believe. You still have to buy and sell stuff. So these marketplaces just enhance what I think is basically a human need, which is to trade with other people.
Do you think Facebook is trying to get any part of that share of the market?
I don't know anything in detail. I'm not on their. I'm not employed by them. I'm not on their board. I don't know what goes on internally. Yeah. But my suspicion is they're testing it. They're testing to see how much they can do, and to the extent that it helps enhance their revenue stream, which is ads. I think they'd be fools not to continue testing it. I don't foresee. I wouldn't be surprised that, for example, if I showed interest and then contacted somebody about a set of chairs that I found on Facebook, I'm going to start seeing it in my Facebook feed, sets of chairs from other, like retailers. Yeah. They're very good at that.
Yes, they are. They are.
As they should be, I suppose. But.
Now, eBay doesn't, with the recent, congressional hearing and everything with Mark Zuckerberg, eBay is careful with the buyers and sellers information. I mean, I've never had anything come up like any questions.
Our business model is different than Facebook. We make money on transactions. Yeah. We make a little bit of money on advertising on the site, but the core for our income is obviously, it's always been transactional. Yeah. We do not sell our users' data to anyone. That's not how we make money. So that's not it's kind of a moot issue for us. Yeah. Luckily, I'd hate to have that headache.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Now, what about any other social medias? Has like Twitter or anything like that? Has anyone else come into play with eBay?
Well, not so much Twitter. Twitter isn't really. Twitter doesn't lend itself to being a marketplace of any sort. But sites like Pinterest, those have been really big for commerce, both on eBay and off. So a lot of people have found success in really figuring out how to employ and utilize Pinterest to help boost their listings, because you can take any eBay listing and add it to one of your boards. And if you develop enough followers and you provide compelling content, it's a great way of making sales. I know that I've just dabbled in this. I haven't really done some serious deep dives into Pinterest as a marketplace enhancement tool for my own selling on eBay. But when I list, I have one board for Hawaiian shirts. When I list Hawaiian shirts, if I put them up on there, the ones that I put up tend to sell faster than the ones that don't. So if your goal is to sell, you want to get your merchandise out in front of as many potential customers as possible.
Cross images all the time on Pinterest. And so you click on the image, and that's what brings you to the eBay site?
if somebody has actually linked their listing to eBay, so you can put up an eBay listing as a pin on one of your boards, and when someone clicks it, it takes them to eBay, to that listing.
Yeah.
So it's a way of putting your items in front of more traffic of people who are interested in those items, because they wouldn't subscribe to your particular board on Hawaiian shirts unless that was an interest to them. Or, maybe it's autographed celebrities, or it's fragrance or something like that. 16th century lighting ware, Pilgrim Century, all that stuff. You're interested in it, you might look on Pinterest and find these boards, subscribe to them, and then when somebody pins on it, you see it, and it might be the enticement you need to then click through and find it on eBay and purchase it.
Yeah.
It would be, especially for items that are really visual. So I'm not talking about like electronics or things that are just commodity items, but if you're dealing in one-of-a-kind art, antiques, or collectibles, not having a Pinterest account is probably really stupid. You want to utilize this to get more buyers to find your merchandise.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got to tell you, I just wondered how this happens now. But again, I was looking for something for my boat. I talked about my boat earlier. I'm working on an older boat, and I was looking for like a adhesive veneer to put on my dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
So I found some, and it was like a small roll of it. It was like $14.99 or something like that. Buy it now. So I bought it now, and it took forever to get here. And then I clicked like, what's going on? And I see it was coming from China, and I didn't realize that. So I buy something for only that much money. They ship it all the way over to here. How can they possibly make money? And I wonder that a lot of times when I'm looking on eBay and see really low buy it now prices, free shipping. How do they make money?
The Chinese government subsidizes their shipping.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's true. It's a well-known fact. So they actually they make arrangements with their shipping companies to subsidize that cost. The Chinese are, for a country that started out in the 40s as communist, these are the fiercest marketplace players I've ever seen. They're good at what they do.
Wow.
So that's part of the value proposition. Now, that listing should have had an indication of how quick or how long it would take to be delivered.
It probably did, and I probably didn't look at it.
Yeah. So you want to pay a lot of attention to the delivery estimate window, because that'll indicate to you if the item location is supposed to say where it is, like for example China, and then the delivery window. Not everything that's listed by Chinese sellers takes forever to get here. Some items are pretty quick, but if you need something fast and you can find it nearer to you, then if that's the factor that is most important, is getting it quickly, then you want to pay attention to those delivery windows. eBay's just introduced a couple months ago a feature called guaranteed delivery. Not all listings qualify, but we're adding more and more sellers' inventory as time goes on. So if I know I need something and I want it guaranteed to arrive here in 3 days, I can toggle all the search results, and the only ones that'll show up are the ones that are going to take 3 days or less to get to my location based on their shipping their shipping pledge. They ship in 1 day. This, for example, for folks who may not want to see all the merchandise that's being offered from outside the United States, whether it's China or anywhere else, this guaranteed delivery tag just filters all of them out.
That's really smart. Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess now's a good time to talk about your book. And basically what I wanted to ask you is, say one of my listeners has never used eBay and they're considering it. Where would you say for them to start? Are there actually tutorials that they can watch, video tutorials?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is, unless you're collecting it, don't buy my book. I know you never hear an author say this. The eBay Bible last edition was 2007. It's totally out of date. So unless you're looking for a historical record of how eBay used to be, and there's some interesting stories, buy a copy for $3, but don't use it as a guide for selling on eBay. It's way out of date.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
And we're not going to update it. So you can find a lot of tutorials on eBay. We're in the process of building more and more. If you're a first-time seller and you're looking to establish a regular presence as a business on eBay, there's Seller Central, which is a link on the bottom of any eBay page that has lots of great information. We have an eBay for Business blog that's also available. If you click on the community link, there's a whole area for reaching that. And then the eBay for Business page on Facebook is also a really good place to look for tutorials and advice. And if you're really pressed, what I've been telling people, whether you're new or experienced, one of the best things you can do is to find a local meetup group in your area of eBay sellers that meets on a regular basis. For example, there's one in New Hampshire that covers most of that area of New England, and I've visited it several times. But you can find meetup groups across the country at meetup.com. And these are a wonderful resource because not only do you get to meet with them once a week, you know what? Like I said, it's a solitary concern. A lot of people don't get a chance to socialize. This is a way of spending an evening with like-minded people who are in the same boat you are. You can share tips and advice and sob stories and war stories and the one that got away. They're lots of fun. You can meet people, and you can also contact a lot of the folks that you meet outside of the meetup and share advice that way. We have a program inside of eBay that's being headed up right now by Brian Burke. He's been at eBay for years, where we're actively looking for ways to provide content and support to these meetup groups who actually meet on a regular basis. For example, there's one in the Bay Area that we provide room in our campus the last Tuesday of every month, and we provide employees to talk about different subjects, about selling, about new products. And we're now going to start videoing a lot of that content and making it available to other meetups and online as well. So there is a rather extensive and varied help network for anyone who wants to learn how to sell on eBay. And if you're still at a loss, I give my email address out to everyone. It's still griff@ebay.com. I'm still employed at eBay. So feel free to email me anytime, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Great. So I want to kind of wrap this up on a couple of what I think might be kind of fun topics, and that is, can you tell us any type of details about the most affluent seller? And I don't mean price-wise. I mean, who has like the most things they've sold on eBay? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I don't actually, because there used to be easy to do that when there was a small pool of sellers who were like, E4 City in LA, they were the first people to meet 1 million feedback. That was 10 years ago.
Wow.
What is still possible and has been possible from the beginning is that if you're determined and you're willing to learn and you have some business savvy, or if you don't, you're willing to learn how to become more business savvy. It is still possible to start from scratch with just a few listings on eBay and build it into a business. It's not easy. I'm never going to lead anyone to believe this is a get-rich-quick scheme. It takes a lot of work. Selling on eBay is a lot of hard work, but it can be very fulfilling. You're your own boss, and if you can find a sweet spot with a product line or a niche, you can really shine and make a lot of money for your business selling online, and we recommend eBay. So
yeah,
it's still possible.
Yes. What would you just mentioned the word niche. What would you consider a really unusual niche that kind of surprises you that is so active?
Well, you've caught me off guard. There's so many right now. I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, because everything that was once a niche, if it's successful, eventually becomes a popular category. And just about everything you can think of has now been taken. I'll tell you one that I keep thinking about, and if I had more time, I think I'd pursue. So there's a ongoing, complaint among sellers of clothing and fashion and apparel that sellers or buyers like to buy things, use them, and then return them. And this drives some sellers crazy. Especially sellers of new clothing, but that you can handle with a restocking fee. If somebody buys an item in package or takes the tag off, you're entitled to take some of the refund back as a restocking fee for mitigating the loss that you take for the item's reduced value. But I've always thought, wait a minute, why fight this? If there are buyers out there who just need something for the weekend, why not make it so that you can buy something on eBay? There's a stated return fee. It's going to cost you 15-20% of the price if you ship it back. but I'm happy to take it back and maybe turn it into a clothing rental business. You can complain and fight. There's buyers who obviously there's some amount of buyers out there. I don't run into them, but there's some amount of buyers out there, and I suspect this is more women's apparel than men's, who buy a dress, wear it for the weekend. It was pre-owned, and then they want to return it. How can I turn that into a profitable business? I don't have to repurchase that item over and over. I just say send it back. It's a 20% rental fee for the weekend, and now I could relist it and let someone else have it. I can keep making money off that single piece of apparel till it falls apart.
Isn't that something?
I think there's a rental niche out there that no one's taking advantage of.
Yeah.
Someone do it before I do.
That is really something. Now, in recent memory, what would you consider, or I don't even know if you follow this, the most expensive item that went through? Was it a car or was it something else?
Well, for years it was a jet, and I think it was a Lear jet, and it sold for I forget it was millions of dollars. And I'm getting old, so this stuff doesn't stick around as much. I'm pretty sure that record somehow may have been preempted by something else, but if it was, it would have been something like an airplane or a yacht, and maybe that's what it is. But yeah, it would be like a high-end vehicle like that. But I think that we've done it in the last 10 years. As the volume of stuff is sold on eBay, we've stopped paying attention to things like, well, this is the most expensive thing ever sold on eBay. It's just evolved away from being that kind of marketplace. So off the top of my head, I really don't know. What I do get, which is very interesting, is I get a report every morning there's a guy who set up his server to take all the items that sold the previous day and then rank them as the highest. So there's a filter, it's not every item, but it's the ones that brought a lot of money. And there's still things like Rolex watches, really expensive luxury cars, collectible guitars, and musical gear. Those things are still showing up at the top of the list as the most expensive items that sell on a regular basis on eBay.
Wow. Now, has there been any regrets on eBay getting out of the live auction business, or was that just too much to handle? That was many years ago.
Well, for me personally, it was a huge regret. I love those. But they're back, right? Martin, are you not paying attention? We reintroduced live auctions on eBay back a year or so ago.
I had not known that. I know of the two, live auctioneers kind of took over from there.
They're doing well, I hear.
Yeah, they are. And then there's I think there's 9 auction platforms in total, but Invaluable and Live Auctioneers are the two big ones. But eBay's back at it. That's amazing.
So you'll find them. I'm thinking of auctioning. So when it comes to New England, I know that. And I'm having another brain moment.
You said Auction Zip? Did I hear?
No, it's our own platform.
Oh, okay.
So it's not. Before it was Live Auctioneers. We partnered with them. Who is the auctioneer on the Cape that does all the nautical stuff?
I know who you mean. Been doing it for years and years and years.
I know their stuff shows up. There's auction houses across the country that are utilizing the new platform. It's been much improved. So over time, technology has improved. So you can submit a bid in advance, or you can live bid during the auction. But no, they've returned.
Wow, how about that? Wow.
And they're in the inventory, so you'll see them. I know that I still look for antiques, and I still find these. You have to register to be approved to bid, and then you can submit a bid before or during the live auction itself.
Wow, amazing. Well, it's been a lot of fun. It's really good to see you again, and
same here.
It's it's been great. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Martin.
All right, we'll have to have you back on again sometime.
Anytime. Happy to help.
All right, take care.
See you later.
Bye. All right, everyone. So that's it, and please keep in mind we'll run these podcasts when we can. We have a couple lined up, and we'll be back, I think, within a couple of weeks, possibly talking about a major artist, Thomas Hart Benton, the guy who is writing that catalog Resonate. Hope to have him on within the next few weeks. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next time.